Hey guys, it's your girl Nici. I know it's dark, but we're getting into a spooky story. But we're revisiting an old story, Don't Drink the Water of Bull Creek on a Full Moon. The first part of the story is going to be down in the description below. Let's get into part 2 and have some spooky time. In a matter of a minute, the wolf was no more. In its place, a human man. 911, what's your emergency? Hello? Hello? Is anyone there? An impatient voice from Brandon's phone asked, bringing some of us back to reality. Nobody was able to answer, though. We just stood there, speechless, looking at the once wolf-turned man standing in front of us. He was naked and covered in Jack and Heather's blood. These effing kids, man, I swear. The operator angrily sighed before hanging up. The wolf didn't get me. I am the wolf. Eden grunted out menacingly in a gruff voice, wiping the blood off his side of his mouth as he stood to his feet. Okay, I said, backing up. What the actual F? Eden chuckled. What? Never seen a werewolf before? Why? Caitlin screamed, wanting to know what the justification he had for killing her boyfriend and best friend. This dumb brunette asked me why, Aiden said ruefully, as she should have known better. Truth be told, Jonah, Brandon, and I were stumped too. He scoffed, appalled at all four of us. 2 words. Fake date. Caitlin gasped as it clicked in her mind. Oh my god! Aiden was referring to the time Heather had asked him out on a date, and it ended up being a joke. She and Brandon had been in the off phase of their on and off again relationship when Aiden first arrived to school. She thought he was attractive and asked him out on a date, to which he said yes. Then she and Brandon made up. Instead of canceling, Brandon and Heather had convinced the rest of us to show up to the date, where they mainly laughed at Aiden and put him down. Heather, having Caitlin hype her up, had asked him so many times why he thought she would ever want to date someone like him. It was a shitty and awkward situation, but by the end we were all thought he handled it fine. Better than most would. The guys even decided he was chill enough to become part of their friend group after football tryouts. Things were pretty civil between us, besides everyone else constantly making him the butt of every joke. Aiden took it in stride, though. It seemed like he had put a fake date past him. Water under the bridge and all that. Turns out, we were dead wrong. Dude, we never would have done that if we knew you were a werewolf, Brandon argued. Aiden rolled his eyes. Do you know how long I've been waiting to get all 6 of you isolated so I could kill you? He paused, brushing a strand of his ruffled brown hair out of his face while he maniacally laughing. Imagine my surprise when I discovered this little shindig would be happening on a full moon. I've been waiting for this party the whole semester. The cloud coverage over the moon shifted slightly, and its light returned for a moment. As if reacting to it, Aiden doubled over, his eyes scrunched closed as a wave of pain rippled through him. He was going to change again. I saw a chance and I took it. Quick, I shouted, running at him. Hold him down. Jonah and Brandon quickly followed my lead, the 3 of us tackling Aiden during the moment of vulnerability. And just as the light had come back, it went away again. I held Aiden down on his back. Caitlin, we need something to restrain him. Jonah, hold his wrists. Brandon, get his legs. Oh, I know, she said, light bulb going off in her head. She took off for another room in her house. Be right back. Even though Aiden was the smallest of the 4 of us guys, Brandon, Jonah, and I struggled to keep him down. He did have the advantage of supernatural strength after all. You know, Russell, Aiden strained to say through gritted teeth. What, I asked, indulging him. You were the only one that never bullied or made fun of me. In my opinion, that makes it worse. Standing by, doing nothing, while I was hurt and humiliated. I applied more pressure to the knee, pinning him down as he tried to get the upper hand on us again. If any consolation, I'm sorry. Aiden chuckled angrily. It's not. Got it, Caitlin cheered as she re-entered the hallway we were in. She held out a shining metallic yet simultaneously fuzzy object. Are those? Jonah began to ask. A pair of my parents' handcuffs? Yes, Caitlin answered. She slipped them over Aiden's wrist. She clicked each cuff closed as tight as she could. Brandon placed his hand vertically against the side of his face and began to whisper. Her parents like to get freaky. These won't hold me forever, you know. They'll hold you long enough for us to find something silver, I quipped back, applying more pressure than needed on his back. In response, Aiden tried to flip himself over. Fairly confident he was well restrained, three of us backed off, letting him get comfortable. Caitlin stroked her thumb against her chin as she searched the files in her mind. We have to have something silver in this house. Aiden began to laugh cockily. You really think I'd break into a house that had my kryptonite in it? I did a little reconnaissance before your little party. I came prepared. Caitlin looked dumbstruck. You were in my house? When? Instead of answering, Aiden flashed a sleazy smile looking over at Brandon. I bet he doesn't know what color underwear you're wearing. You mother effer. I'll kick your butt, Brandon yelled, lunging at Aiden. Jonah and I had to restrain him from doing anything too harsh. We did, of course, let him get a good hit in. The four of us then moved away from the werewolf, but not too far away. Guys, we need to figure out what to do, Jonah said, analyzing our situation. He's right, those cuffs won't last forever. Neither will the cloud coverage over the moon, I noted, observing how Aiden transformed back after the moonlight had gone away. What can we do? Brandon panicked. There's no silver to defend ourselves with. Caitlin started to have a panic attack. This is hopeless. We're doomed. Aiden's annoying cackles occupied the background of our conversation. I have an idea, I announced after whacking my brain for any possible solution. My idea was so stupid it might just work. I'm going to drink from the Wolf Creek. Are you crazy? Caitlin shouted at me. It's just a myth. Well, so are werewolves, I counted, looking at her appalled. Caitlin's expression wavered as she considered my logic. Theoretically, it could work, Jonah said, biting his thumbnail. Plus, we don't have many other options at this point. I sighed a breath of relief. Well, then it's settled then. I'll go with you, Brandon volunteered. I shot him a concerned look. Brandon was a lot of things, but him being capable of help pull this off was question. Think about it. We both drink from the creek and become werewolves. Then we outnumber him. We'll have the advantage. I pressed my lips into a thin line before I reluctantly agreed. That was actually the smartest thing I've heard him say in a while. I couldn't argue with such sound logic. Besides, being a werewolf would be awesome. We all scowled at Brandon. We better get going, he said, clearing his throat, grabbing his car keys. We don't have all night. I nodded in agreement. Caitlin, Jonah, and I all stared at another with mutual understanding as we migrated further into the house. Call us if anything happens, I instructed as the two of us walked out the front door. Jonah gave a two-finger salute from the doorway. Brandon's F-150 chirped at the end of Caitlin's driveway as he unlocked the car. Do you know where Wolf Creek is? I said, as hopping into shotgun. Heard of it, but I've never been there. Yeah, it's a couple miles down the road. I took Caitlin on a picnic date near there once, Brandon answered, quickly peeling out of there. He drove down a series of streets, seemingly twisting and turning down them all random, all about speed. Brandon would periodically look out the window at the clouds covering the moon. Any minute they could shift again, and we knew it. Are you sure you know where you're going? I asked, wringing my hands nervously. We've been driving for 10 minutes at this point. I discreetly took out my phone, pulled the maps up, ready to search the creek's location at a moment's notice. I stayed ready, but I wanted to give Brandon the benefit of the doubt. Yes, Brandon snapped to come to the presser rear under. Bush smashed on the brakes as he began to drive slowly, scanning the scenery outside the creek. We slowly approached a street sign for Wolf Creek Road, but Brandon wasn't paying attention. He was right about to drive past him. Turn! Here! It's Wolf Creek Road, I shouted frantically, pointing at the street sign. The truck jerked sharply as Brandon's tires screeched against the asphalt, barely managing to make the turn. Yeah, he said breathlessly. This looks familiar. See, I told you I knew where I was going. I rolled my eyes, opting to look out, searching for the creek. There, I said, pointing to a small sign that read Wolf Creek. It ran through a residential area. A small walking bridge had been built over the ditch the creek ran through. But at the same time we discovered the creek, a flashing blue and red lights turned on behind it. Shit, we don't have time for this, Brandon muttered under his breath and pulled his vehicle. I patted his shoulder, reassuring him. Hey, at least we found the creek. My heart sank when I realized we had been drinking. Brandon and I were definitely buzzed. With the werewolf waiting back at the house, on top of us being underage, things were not looking good. You kids been having fun tonight? The officer asked as Brandon rolled down his window. You were driving pretty interestingly there. Brandon and I shot each other's nervous glance. I gulped. The officer leaned against the side of the truck. There was a spring call to emergency services earlier tonight for coming from around this area. You boys wouldn't know anything about that, would you? That look Brandon gets when he's about to say something stupid showed up on his face. Eyes widened as I began shaking my head no. Inkling of what he was about to do crossed my mouth. 2 of our friends were killed by a werewolf who sputtered out suddenly. A relieved laugh left his mouth as he continued to spill his guts. And a werewolf is our friend, who turns out isn't really our friend. He's determined to kill our whole friend group by the end of the night. He's locked up in my girlfriend's parents' handcuffs. We're trying to drink from the creek water to test the legend and hopefully defeat him. I sunk my face in my hands. This was not going to end well. Yeah, I'm gonna need you two to step out of the vehicle, please, the cop said, staring at Brandon unamused. As if things couldn't get much worse, the full moon once again shone as the clouds covering it drifted away. The officer and his partner had lined Brandon and I up against the side of their cruiser. We had just finished doing a field sobriety test. Now we're having us blow into a breathalyzer. A couple of nosy neighbors were peeking behind the curtains to see what was going on. This one older lady had come out under false pretense of walking her pudgy bulldog. She stood on the street corner behind a stop sign, not even trying to hide the fact that she was watching us. This one is under the legal limit, the officer partner replied, as if I wasn't standing there in front of him. The officer sighed disappointingly and checked Brandon's reading. So is this one. Smell any pot on them? The partner asked. The officer looked Brandon up and down, scoffing. Unfortunately not. But they gotta be on something. Let's take them back to the station and have them peanut cup. The station, I guess. We were never gonna get back in time to save Joss and Caitlin. Hell, they could have been dead already. Brandon and I shot each other a knowing glance. Officer, please, we can't go to the police station, he begged. I've already explained to you. First, I'd like to check the dilation of their pupils, he said, cutting Brandon off. A bright beam of light was then shoved in his eye, blinding him momentarily. The cops partnered his head in agreement before doing the same with me. He just formed as examined me when we heard it. My heart sank in the pit of my stomach as a howl sounded out in the distance, but it wasn't that far away. What the hell was that? The police officer detained Brandon asked. He stepped back, putting his hand on his gun holster and inspecting our surroundings. The woman's bulldog started growling and barking like crazy, sensing a predator looking him up. Quick! While they're distracted, Brandon yelled, blindly taking it off. To the creek! I stood there dazed by the flashlight, rapidly blinking my vision back. Hey! The officer yelled as he was about to chainsaw after him, but paused curiously. Still blinded by the light, Brandon haphazardly ran through he thought he heard rushing water of the creek. He actually ran the opposite direction towards the lady and her dog. The animal, rightly scared, had begun pissing himself in fear. Brandon stepped in the puddle that had pooled inside. Thinking it was the creek, he leaned down. Ew. I'm sorry. Thinking it was the creek, he leaned down and gathered a small sample in his hands, laughing. Heads up, Russell. The creek water tastes gross. It's not refreshing at all, he commented, sips the yellow liquid, so oblivious to what he was actually drinking. Are you sure this man isn't on drugs, officer? The woman asked, clutching her pearls. In the I'm so sorry, y'all. I know it's supposed to be a scary story. Brandon, heads up, Russell. The creek water tastes gross. It's not refreshing at all, he commented through sips of yellow liquid, still oblivious to what he was actually drinking. Are you sure this man isn't on drugs, officer? The old woman asked, clutching her pearls. Even the dog looked at him like, dude, what is this guy going? What is this guy going? The 3 of us just stared at him. I'm so sorry. The 3 of us just stared at him, cringing, too stunned to say anything. Brandon then blinked rapidly, his temporary blindness dissipating. Ah, ew, he claimed, realizing his mistake. He wiped the pee off his hand, spitting and gagging the whole way over the creek on the verge of vomit. He was just about to cleanse the delightful taste of dog pee out of his mouth. One of the officers sounded, causing him to pause. A gigantic gray blur had collided with the first officer, dragging him away from his police cruiser. He's here, I yelled, diving out the way. JC. Sorry. the partner exclaimed, reaching for the gun. He barely managed to pull the weapon out of the holster before Aiden attacked him too. The deadly snarl left the wolf's morals as he feasted on the dead officer's entrail. When he finished, Aiden's eyes landed right on me. I slowly began to crawl backwards. The wolf predatorily stalked towards me. I see the bloodlust swirling in Aiden's glowing blue eyes. I looked behind me, and the innocent woman and the dog took my eyes off the woman to warn. Go! Get out of here before it's too late. The woman shook like crazy, but nodded her head in understanding, wrangling her dog up to escape. I turned back, bracing for the impact with Aiden ready to go for a kill. He jumped, but landed behind me. Confused, released, I looked to see why. The pudgy bulldog had broken previously, yapping as it charged forward to attempt to protect its owner instead of running away. Deeming the dog as more of a threat than me, Aiden changed course last second to neutralize. Frederick! No! The old lady cried as she reached for her dog, but it was too late. Though Frederick, the pudgy bulldog, got a good nip or two in there, he was no match for this gigantic werewolf opponent. The lady seemed seemingly unaware of what had attacked her dog, with the metal part of the dog's leash at Aiden. Bad dog! Bad! Annoyed, Aiden quickly pounced on the old woman. Her shrill screams filled the air as she was torn apart. I quickly stood up, realizing this was the only chance we get. Brandon and I met at the side of the creek. We took one last glance at the moon, which once again would be covered soon, before finally drinking the water of Wolf Creek. Aiden disapprovingly howled. He didn't get a chance to do anything as he started shifting back to human again. I hope I don't get a brain-eating anemia from this, I said, gulping down a giant mouthful of gritty creek water. It tastes better than dog piss, Brandon said, using the water to flush his tongue. Aiden let out a pain groan as his vocal cords snapped back in place. We stopped drinking from the creek to look at him. We need to get back to the house while the move is still covered. Brendan looked over the police cruiser, which still had red and blue lights on. I got it, he took off running with the police officer scored. The sinister laugh left Aiden's mouth, his whole body human again. You think you can stop me? No, not really, I said, wiping my mouth off. Brandon's figure appeared in my peripheral vision. But you really should put some pants on. Just then, Brandon charged forward, having a stolen taser gun from the cops. He released a guttural cry as he pressed the trigger, going right for Aiden's exposed nutsack. With impeccable aim, two electrified prongs satisfied to connect the man's unclothed private part. Aiden fell to the floor, convulsing, as he tried to yank the metal out of him. He screamed through gritted teeth as 50,000 volts of electricity ravaged his body. A creep shuddered down my spine as I imagined the pain he was feeling. Then I remembered he killed my friends and shrugged it off. Come on, let's get him in the bed of the truck, Brandon said, picking Aiden's unconscious body. Got his arm, we chucked the effort in the car. Brandon and I quickly peeled out of there before more cops came to investigate the scene. Where have you guys been? Caitlin scolded as we pulled into the driveway. A streak of blood ran down her face. Jonah, besides Caitlin, comforted. He looked pretty banged up too, with a few cuts and bruises on his arms. He got out. Yeah, we know, I said, exiting the truck. We've been busy, Brandon quipped as he pulled Aiden's unconscious body out of the bed of the truck. Jonah ran over to help carry him back into the house. We settled him on the couch in the living room. Got any more handcuffs? Jonah asked Caitlin with a smirk. He put his hands on his chest, looking down at Aiden. Unfortunately not. Caitlin looked around, her eyes landing on the coat rack next to the front door. The scarf might work, though. Jaden took the scarf, tying Aiden's hands together. I found a smaller throw blanket and used that to tie his legs together. That should hold, for a little while at least. Brandon placed a couch pillow over Aiden's nether region. Do you think it worked? He asked. I don't feel any different. My shoulders shrugged as I took a seat on my love seat. The moon was covered when we drank the water and was still covered then. The only time would tell if we reacted the same to the moonlight as Aiden. I did a little digging while you were gone, Kaden started. About Wolf Creek and the legend? What did you find? I said curiously. She took a deep breath before seriously info jumping on us. So it turns out the Native Americans cursed the creek not only to try to drive the settlers away, but to restore balance. You see, settlers were disrupting the ecosystem by overhunting the wolf population for sport. Their solution? Kill another wolf, drag its bleeding out corpse into the middle of the creek, one of the settlement's main access to water, that remind you on the night of a full moon. The tribe's medicine man performed a ritual in secret, dancing and drumming all night long till the creek turned red. Then voila, we got our werewolf course creek. Us guys looked at one another, processing all that. There's a lot to unpack there, Jonah said. Caitlin paused, eyebrows furrowing in concern. There's something else. She didn't get to finish her thought, as interrupted by Eden returning to consciousness. Came in another maniacal laughing fit. Your time is running out, he's saying. You can't become a werewolf by drinking a cursed creek water. That's not how it works. You're either born into it like me, or you get bitten in turn. You don't know that, I scoffed, coming to realization. The look on Aiden's face told me everything I need to know. That's why you didn't kill Caitlin or Jonah after you escaped and came right for Brandon and I. Jonah came to a similar understanding. He was trying to stop you from drinking the water because if the curse was real, then he's effed. No, he lied, squirming in his binds. We backed him into a corner, which Aiden didn't like. You know what? It doesn't matter, because your little plan won't work. Brandon smirked as he pointed out Caitlin's living room windows. Looks like we're about to find out. The full moon once again graced us with her presence as our cloudy prison set her free. The moonlight slowly kept through the living room, first landing on Brandon, then me, and finally Aiden. Brandon stood there anxiously waiting for something to happen. Guys, I don't think. Suddenly he doubled over, with Aiden following. What the F? Brandon swore. His whole body was shaking. He was drenched with sweat. The muscles underneath his skin rippled, shifting and reforming themselves. I watched as both Aiden and Brandon's forms began to change. Confusion set in as I wondered why nothing happened to me. I suddenly yelped as a bolt of electricity exploded on the top of my skull, all the way down to my big toe. There it was, the start of my transformation. The curse of Wolf Creek. And it wasn't just a legend. It was real. Ah! Brandon cried as the skin of his forearm tore open. Instead of blood, matted gray fur purred out of the open wound. Fangs sprouted from his mouth as nails sharpened into claws. As I began to feel what he was, a loud scream left him and clutched his side. This doesn't feel right. No shit, Jonah yelled. You're turning into a werewolf. There's nothing natural about that. My insides, they feel like they're on fire. That's what I was trying to tell you earlier, Caitlin cut in. The curse only works on those who are pure of heart. What the heck does that mean? Brandon groaned, clutching his sides. His cough, spitting up black blood into his semi-wolf turned hand. He shuddered at the sight of it. Oh no, she whimpered, seeing the blood. Caitlin, what does it mean? I yelled. Another surge of electricity shocked me. Only pure of heart people were cursed, she stammered out, because they could create the most damage and destruction to their loved ones. The medicine doctors knew there would be those who drank from the creek seeking out the power of the curse. So the men who drank out of the creek seeking to become the beast would die during their transformation. Spitting up black blood means you aren't pure of heart. Brandon then began uncontrollably seizing, black blood oozing from every orifice. His body elongated as his body still attempted the transformation. Caitlin cried as she screamed, running into Jonah's arm for comfort. If I'm gonna die, delete my search history, Brandon said, with his last gasping breath. His mangled half-wolf body slowly writhed till the movement stopped. He died a quick yet torturous death. At least it was fast. Is that gonna happen to me? I freaked out. A tremendous wave of pain knocked me on my knees, fire burning beneath my skin as my muscles and bones took my mind of their own. Brandon's transformation had started before mine, but I wasn't too far behind. I was seeking to become a werewolf too. Aiden, who ripped himself out of his cloth binds, was mainly focused on shifting back into his wolf form. But before he began to laugh again, "You idiots," he grunted, eyes glowing grew. "You're practically killing yourselves for me." My vision blurred and I slumped forward, the palm of my half-turned hand clutching the floor, holding me steady. Accepting my face, I decided to let go. Everything went dark for a moment. The night's events then flashed in my eyes. I helped pull Jonah up after tripping in his yard chair. Did the same with Caitlin. I prevented her from going back to Jack's corpse earlier, then risking turning my back on Aiden to warn the old woman. And everything exploded into a blinding light. In my daze, I heard someone go, "Hey, he's not oozing black goo." That might be true, but that does not look like Aiden does, the other voice replied frantically. The voices of my friend pulled me back for a minute. I opened my eyes and I was different. Taller, bulkier, powerful. The creek's curve must have differed from that of Aiden's. Whereas he became a literal wolf, I had transformed into a big ball of muscles, fangs, and fur. A real-life wolf man. I was still me on the inside, being able to recognize Caitlin when she said, "Aw, he actually looks kind of cute. And Jonah, when he made a face at her, she shrugged, both of them able to tell I was still me. Yeah, you're right. I spun my massive frame around after a piercing growl shook the house. Anger filled my newly mended bones as Aiden, now Wolf, stood at the end of the connected dining room. He had a similar disdained expression on his muzzle. It was then, when I towered over him, that I realized there was never needed to be two of us to take him on. I was stronger than Aiden all on my own. Red filled my vision. I wanted to kill him. I was going to kill him. Aiden huffed one final time before jumping at me. My body slammed him midair, sending him flying into Caitlin's kitchen table. I didn't give him a chance to shake it off, slashing at his abdomen with my large clawed paw. He let out an agonized whine as his breast got heavier. Poor Caitlin screamed at the carnage. My claws had cut deep, merely an inch away from disemboweling him. Aiden struggled to stand. The wound was too big and too deep, though to my dismay it had already begun to heal. I have to resort to more drastic measure. Oh, gee damn, Jonah muttered as I picked Aiden up by the neck with one hand. He whined and clawed at my hand, wrist trying to break himself free. He choked as began out, and I pierced his soul with my deathly glare. My lips curled upwards in a senile as I savored the sound of Aiden's windpipe fracturing after a light squeeze. The smaller wolf squirmed and shook as he began to wheeze, unable to breathe. I decided to put the poor pup out of his misery, show him the mercy he hadn't granted me or my friends. With an earth-shattering roar, my free hand sliced against the skin and fur of Aiden's neck. His decapitated head fell to the floor with a satisfying thud. I chucked the body next to it like the filth he was. It was done. Aiden was dead. With the night I had, his death seemed so anticlimactic. I needed to do more. I needed to keep killing. My supernatural hearing turned the slight shuffling coming behind me. I turned to face Caitlin and Jonah. You did it, Caitlin cheered. You killed him. My head turned slightly to the side as I looked at her. The image of Caitlin's sweet, silky blood pouring between my fingers filled my mind's eye. Red started to seep in the corners of my vision. I took a step forward. Russell? Jonah questioned, doing the opposite of me, taking a cautionary step back. You okay, bud? This is wrong. What was I thinking of doing? These people are my friends. I tried to shake the killer thoughts of my head. I tried to hold on to myself. I huffed, smacking myself. Looked at Caitlin and Jonah one more, hoping they would anchor me back to reality. They looked frightened, scared. I wanted to comfort them, but at the same time, the redhead taking up most of my village. A large part of me enjoyed the look on their faces. The smell of fear wafted off to them was almost addictive. The harder I felt myself to keep in control, the more the small pieces of me fall away, replaced by something far, bloodthirsty. Shit, Caitlin, Jonah muttered, motioning for her to get closer to him. He's losing it. Caitlin slowly walked back to Jonah. What do we do? Jonah accidentally bumped into the bookshelf against the saddle wall of the living room. His attempt to get away from me lost his balance and stumbled to the floor. Caitlin yelled. At the same time, Redhead completely filled my vision, and I got pushed into the passenger seat. Caitlin's dad radio turned up on What's Up by four non-blondes blasted at full volume. The sudden noise startled and pushed me forward. I lunged after Caitlin. She managed to dodge out of the way as I body slammed into the bookshelf. The furniture was crushed by my body weight. Splintering wood, books, and glass figurines flew everywhere. It didn't take me long to pick myself up. A snarl left my mouth as I faced her once more. She quivered in the corner, fear rendering her legs useless. I opened my gaping maw, ready to take a bite out of Caitlin. My jaw snapped as I went in for the kill. Unfortunately, Jonah had threw himself in front of my target. My fangs sunk deeply in his forearms instead of Caitlin's neck. Oh well, he'll have to do. Go, he screamed in pain, thick rivulets of his blood dripping onto the ground. Caitlin, jostled out of her frozen state of shock, did as told and took off. Another yell left his mouth as I bit down harder, cracking his bones. Jonah used his free hand and began poking at my eye. I shook him off, accidentally releasing his arm. Angrily, I slashed at his face, my claws slicing the skin around his eye open. The sweet sound of his agonizing cries filled my eardrum. Still dazed from my attack, I grabbed him by the neck and lifted him in the air like I'd done Aiden. Roar! Casey yelled as she charged at me from behind. I was distracted with Jonah. She had grabbed a sharp wooden piece of her broken dining room table. Without enough time to react, the makeshift spear was thrust into my lower back. Caitlin continued to scream her primal yells as she impaled a piece of wood deeper inside me. Jonah got flung across the house in chaos. My pain wars jostled the atoms in the air. A splintered piece of wood emerged from the other side. Caitlin let out a relieved breath as my hands began to shake. My balance faltered for a second. In my opinion, she let it out a little too early. I grabbed the bloody piece of wood and thrust back. A wet squelch came from behind me. The force of my thrust had pushed the other end of the makeshift spear into Caitlin's abdomen. I turned to see the cheerleader's son staring at a piece of wood that protruded from her stomach. Shaky yelp left her mouth, and I licked my lips. My wound almost done healing. I simply returned the favor. Grabbing the slick end of the thing, I used my strength to guide it through Caitlin's intestines, vital organs, until it came out her backside. She groaned in pain, looking at me wide-eyed. Delectable fear swelled with her. With a sadistic chuff, I twisted the wood. She let out another guttural scream. An even worse one than before followed as I yanked the piece of wood out entirely. A gaping hole was left in the girl's side. Her intestines slowly began to slide out. To prevent that from happening, I punched my fist into the hole, lifting her up in the air and turning her side. The song played in the background, delightfully crescendo. "No, Russell, please," Caitlin begged. Though gasping breaths, I put my other anthropomorphic paw on her hip and began to teasingly tug. Please went unanswered as I tightened my grip around her and really began pulling. The sound of her flesh stretching and tearing drowned out her death screeching. Like cracking open an egg, Caitlin's organs began to fall out of her lower body as I tore her in half. Her cries diminished not only a second after that. Her eyes faded to gray as one final tug broke her spine apart. I howled triumphantly, tossing the split girl's remains away. I'd eat them later, but first I had to finish the hunt and kill Jonah. Setting out just to do that, my first lurched forward. When it halted, my body began to violently convulse. A great fiery pain spread through my veins like wildfire. I searched frantically for the cause, my eyes landing just outside the living room window. In all the excitement, I hadn't realized dawn had arrived. The sunrise not far behind, the full moon had sunken behind the horizon, not to rise again for another month. The night was over. Just as quickly as I transformed and lost myself, my body began to change back to normal. The stress of the night and the pain was so overwhelming, I blacked out. Didn't help that I crashed face first into the floor either. The last trills of the song faded away as I sunk deeper and deeper into unconsciousness. "Hey, this one's breathing," someone shouted loudly next to my ear, waking me up. Sole survivor is a young male. His clothes had been torn to shreds, and he's drenched in blood. Next thing I knew, blinding light was being shown in my eyes. "Hello? Sir, can you hear me? What happened here?" I rubbed at the stinging out my eyes. My vision was blurry and the events of last night were hazy. Wolf, I stuttered out. Who I now realized was a paramedic, reported back to her spirit. Just like we thought, another animal attack. First Rock Creek Road, now this. Caitlin, Jonah, I groggily mumbled, sitting at the aid of the paramedic. Turned my head to see the damage, but she covered my eyes and had me look at her. "You don't want to see that," she solemnly said. "Your friends didn't make it." What happened to them?" I became more lucid. Paramedic paused, debating if she should divulge that information to me. A moment of contemplation, she decided to let me know. "Carnage. That's what happened to them. Worst of all, we think the wolf may have dragged one of the bodies back into the woods with it. There's a chance they're still alive, but it's slim. We have a team combing the area right now as we speak." I threw up. Not from the paramedics' word, but from the memories of attacking Jonah and Caitlin and tearing Aiden into pieces, rushing in. Remember drinking the water from Wolf Creek and turning into a werewolf. If one of us was unaccounted for then, that must mean Jonah was the one she was talking about. I remember slashing his eye, not killing him. I was brought out of my thoughts as two more paramedics joined us with a stretcher. With a seat collar around my neck and loaded me up. It was useless. I was completely healed, and most of the blood on my clothes weren't even marked. For a sense of normalcy, to quell my suspicion, I let them take me. As they started rolling me to an ambulance, a slip of paper fell out of my tattered part. "Oops, you dropped this," a male paramedic handed me a slip of paper. "Here you go." Grabbed it curiously. To my knowledge, there hadn't been anything in the pocket at the beginning. When I unfolded it, I found a note, scribbled haphazardly in a rush. The note read, "Still alive." My eyes widened in shock. The paramedics had to hold me down by my chest as I began thrashing around. Panic enveloped me, and I felt like suffocating. I had bitten him, Jonah. Aiden had said something earlier about the night being born. Curse was transferring through a bite. Did Wolf Creek curse work the same as his? My sense of dread worsened as I was loaded into the back of the ambulance. I swore something was watching me just from beyond the tree line, from Caitlin's backyard. It really hit home last night was real when the coroner started rolling the bloodstained sheets to cover corpse of my friends out the house. That's the last thing I saw before the door slammed shut and the ambulance began its journey to hospital. So I implore you, don't drink the water of Wolf Creek on the night of a full moon. Otherwise, you'll end up just like me. Whew. That story gives me the chills, and thank you for reading the second part with me, y'all. Until next time, it's your girl Nici. Bye.